It's my pleasure to introduce Chris Chocola, President and CEO of the Club for Growth. His credentials began when he attended and graduated from Hillsdale College in Michigan. Chris is a native of Michigan. He then went on to law school and went to work for CDTB, a leading manufacturer of ag equipment in the Midwest, and worked his way up and became the CEO in 1994. After his retirement, he ran in the Indiana's 2nd Congressional District and served for 2 terms as their congressman. While in Congress, Chris distinguished himself as one of Congress's leading advocates for limited government, often casting very lonely votes for the taxpayers, which we don't see too often today, right? He supported pro-growth tax cuts, decreased government spending, political free speech, and less government regulation. Today, Chris and the Club for Growth are returning Congress to principled conservatism, not pragmatism. Welcome, Chris Chocola.
Good afternoon. Bob, thank you for that very generous introduction. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to spend a little time with you here today. I'm honored to have the invitation to say a couple of words. I'll keep it brief. I want to say thank you to all of you that are here and made the effort to come to Washington and participate in this really great gathering. You know, but I have to confess, I kind of wish that Cpac were somewhere else this year. I kind of wish it wasn't in Washington. It's not because of the snow and the cold. That's not what concerns me. But if history is any guide, you know, the more time conservatives spend in Washington, the less they act like conservatives. You know, but let me give you a little sign of hope. I did meet a guy, I found a guy a few years ago, that I'm convinced that he will always understand that individuals spend their money much more wisely than the federal government does. It might be more accurate to say he found me. When I served in the House, my office was in the Cannon building, and I had a little row house that was just a block away. I'd work late a lot of nights and walk home, and one night when I was walking home, I turned a corner, and out of nowhere, a masked gunman appeared and stuck a gun right in my ribs, and he said, "Give me your money." Well, I have to admit I was a little bit surprised, a little shocked, and I didn't know what to do. And so I blurted out, "Do you realize that you are trying to rob a member of the United States House of Representatives?" And he said, "In that case, give me my money." So the distinction, the trick you have this year is to make the distinction between the candidates that act kind of like that guy. They say they understand that you spend your money well, but they want to steal it anyways, and those that are true believers. And so you're going to hear a lot of things this year. You're going to hear a lot of things at this conference, and I think you're going to hear a lot of things in a year that is really shaping up to be historic for conservatives. You're going to hear a lot about waste. You're going to hear a lot about spending. You're going to hear a lot about arrogance. You're going to hear a lot about incompetence of this Congress and this administration. And I think it's safe to say that probably all those things are true. But the fact that we are having this discussion, the fact that we are talking about a wasteful spending Democrat-controlled Congress and an arrogant and incompetent Democrat administration, I think is in large part the responsibility of the National Republican Party. Let me, as our current president likes to say, let me be clear. The trouble that we're in, the threats that are posed by Washington today and for generations to come, have been made possible by the National Republican Party and their actions over the last 10 years. They made the 2006 and 2008 elections not only possible, but I think inevitable. But even so, the polls show that the Republicans have a real opportunity, especially in the House, to regain a majority in November and make great strides in the Senate. And so I think that we have to ask the question, I think that conservatives need to ask the question, but really all Americans need to ask the question, can Republicans be trusted with a renewed majority? We have to ask the questions, would they really shrink the size of government? Would they really rescind the unspent stimulus money? Would they claw back the TARP money and reduce the debt? Would they repeal any health care takeover that's still possible that the Democrats will do, and pass market-based health care reforms that shrink the role of government in our health care decisions? And would they really tackle responsible entitlement reforms? I hate to admit it, but standing here today, I have to say I simply don't know. Now, I feel a little better after listening to my fellow Hoosier, Mike Pence, recently. Let's give Mike a hand. Mike does a great job. But I'm not convinced because I'm not convinced that they have learned the lessons of the 2006 and 2008 elections. Now, to their credit, the Republicans have stood united against the worst aspects of the Obama agenda. But at the same time, they endorsed Dede Scozzafava over Doug Hoffman in New York 23. They've endorsed Charlie Crist over Marco Rubio in Florida. As we speak, they are spending big money to try to protect a big spending senator in Utah who has very viable and attractive conservative challengers. And I don't think we'll ever forget that they endorsed Arlen Specter over Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania. So I think the question remains, how can the Republicans regain our trust? And I think the answer lies in the fact that the Democrat failures over the last year or so have created a huge void in the center of American politics today. And what the Republicans need to do simply is to return to their conservative roots and fill that void with their best ideas. And they also need to realize that the Democrat failures aren't just presenting a political opportunity, but they are really presenting a policy opportunity where we can offer a concrete agenda for real conservative reforms. If the Republicans simply run as not being Democrats, I think that we will have missed an historic opportunity. Republicans may still win in November, but I think we will still lose. Something's been made clear this year. Something's been made clear by ordinary citizens that have aligned themselves with the Tea Party movement, by others that have simply just showed up at a town hall meeting to express their concern and anger. And what they've highlighted is something that I think has been true throughout our nation's history. And what they've highlighted is that conservative values are American values. And I think this is evidenced by the last two times that Democrats controlled Washington. Republicans won huge victories. But we can't forget that those victories were not just based on politics, they were based on policy as well. Because when the Democrats are in control of Washington, they reveal the dangers of unchecked liberalism. And Americans respond. They responded to the positive reforms of Ronald Reagan in 1980, and they responded to the Contract with America class in 1994. In both cases, they turned expected gains into unexpected landslides. And I think in 2010, all Americans, and conservatives in particular, deserve a similar agenda. We deserve an agenda of deficit and debt reduction, of no new spending, no more bailouts, no more earmarks, and competition in healthcare, energy, and education. If Republicans produce such an agenda, based on serious ideas from serious leaders like Jim DeMint, Tom Coburn, Mike Pence, Jeff Flake, and I think two clearly will be new senators next year, Marco Rubio and Pat Toomey. The Republicans will not only win, I think they will absolutely deserve to win, because an agenda based on limited government, economic freedom, and individual liberty will change the 2010 midterm elections from a referendum on a personally likable president to a substantive choice between his failed policies and our founding principles. So let me just finish by saying once again that I really wish that Cpac was somewhere other than Washington this year. And the reason really I wish that is because every year conservatives come back to Washington. And in a sense, every year conservatives come back to the Republican Party. But I think this year it's high time that the Republicans come back to conservatives. Thank you very much.